I want to thank everybody for being here today. This is a total thrill for us. We work with folks so far away, pretty much every day, and to have you all here with us from all across the country, this makes this a very, very special day for us. This is the 4th annual ToolBank Summit. You know, when we started ToolBank USA, our goal was simply to share this remarkable program with community-minded residents in other cities. We really had very little idea on how to do it. All we knew was that folks that lived in Atlanta would move away. They would call us at the Atlanta ToolBank and say, "We have a project this weekend. Where's the Chicago ToolBank?" I don't know. I don't think there is one. Call from Austin, Philadelphia, Detroit, Dallas. We wanted to help those folks, and so from those growing number of inquiries, we launched ToolBank USA. We spent the better part of 6 years developing a replication model that is simple and elegant. And those of you that have followed that replication model are probably thinking, simple, elegant, oh my God. It is far from that, but we do our best to make it as simple and elegant as we can. You know, there's an old saying that the best teacher doesn't make the best principal. And so an awesome program is very difficult to replicate effectively and to lead effectively and to facilitate effectively. So we started with a basic proven concept at the Atlanta ToolBank, and we worked in partnership with those leaders, Patty and her board, Patty Russer, right over here. Glad to have you. With the leaders of the first few ToolBanks to improve our operations, to streamline local to national communications, and strengthen the collaterals for fundraising. Local markets could be successful and independent as they stand up a sustainable organization. The proof of our model is in the 7 ToolBanks currently open and lending tools, and their exploding impact. Last year, ToolBanks loaned $3.7 million worth of tools. They equipped 142,000 volunteers collectively. That's 42% more demand than 2013. So just a quick round of applause for ToolBanks and their integration with the community. There are so many accomplishments in our network that take place on a daily basis that next year we're going to change this from a lunch to a lock-in. We're going to do like a weekend sleepover. We're going to just make announcements on and on. It's going to be awesome. So if you can make it. I just got to tell you a couple things that have taken place at the local level. You know, Atlanta ToolBank is executing a capital campaign. They have an awesome new building. They've passed the $1 million mark on a $1.6 million campaign. Great facility. Be sure and go down for a tour if you haven't. They're going to renovate. They've got capital equipment, and they're also launching a tool training center this year. Because what we know is that if people know how to use tools, they will use tools. Charlotte piloted the first ever tool support specialist trip with Sherry Osborne. Where is she? She's our ToolBank astronaut back in the back here. Charlotte ToolBank staffer went to Phoenix to provide tool expertise during their first week of operations. So to have a veteran ToolBanker go to a ToolBank that hasn't even opened yet, to work with a team of people in Phoenix who have not seen operating ToolBank. It was pretty cool to share that with them. Baltimore broke ground on their innovative rain garden project. Their Maryland Secretary of the Environment featured it on a stormwater management roadshow. Cincinnati held its first Hammers Nails fundraiser in 2014. 200 guests attended, and they raised over $12,000. Houston secured an awesome co-location partnership with Rebuilding Together Houston, a much respected organization in Houston. So rather than just, hey, that building will work, let's move in there, they found a partnership that was in motion with an organization that is already beloved in the community. And so the demand in Houston went through the roof the minute they opened. So an incredible integration opportunity that they pursued. Danny mentioned that Richmond and Phoenix have both been laboring through 2014. Both just opened 2 weeks ago and are now lending tools in their community, helping to end tool scarcity. We're looking for grand openings in those cities shortly. And if you have not attended a grand opening to a ToolBank, you got to check it out. You're talking about people who have worked between 3 and 5 years to open the doors on this thing. And I'm looking at a couple of you that are just like, yeah, we're ready. We're ready to do this. So it's so great to be at a grand opening. We also have our baby ToolBank in Chicago, as Danny mentioned, crossed a fundraising milestone and is now hiring their executive director and looking for a space. You know the old saying, you got 10 people and 20 opinions? We go to the Chicago ToolBank board meeting and they try to figure out where the ToolBank is going to be located. So that's going to be a very entertaining process. Just for the record, my advice in those conversations, they say, where are we going to put it? And I say, you have to pick a place that's mutually inconvenient to everyone. And we let them figure it out. We know the ToolBank. They know their city. So we let them work on that. And in every city up to now, the location has been the right location. So it's really great to look to their leadership. And last, but certainly not least, ToolBank Disaster Services, our ToolBank on wheels. If you haven't seen it out front, you got to check it out. It's pretty awe-inspiring. I want to thank Vicki Kaysen and Mike Yoder for really helping us set the blueprint for what ToolBank Disaster Services is all about, how we can integrate in the community and learn from the best, stand on the shoulder of giants. I think it's also worth noting that our affiliates have been doing great work, but ToolBank USA has been doing a couple of things on its own. We spent over $50,000 a year last year, $50,000 last year, flying our staff around the country to attend board meetings, go to grand openings, and get face time. We want to see folks. We want to be with them in person because that's how we build relationships. We build trust. So we're thrilled to spend that money on our affiliates to build those long-term relationships. We secured over $250,000 worth of in-kind support for our affiliate. We averaged around $40,000 in cash and in-kind support for our affiliates across the network. You name it. And we're out there either providing it or trying to provide it. And we listen to our affiliates about what is valuable, what could be provided. You know, if we have a platform that struggles, if we've got payroll, insurance, all of these things that keep us away from our core purpose, which is to serve with effectiveness, with accuracy, and awesome customer service, which is what ToolBank is all about. Everyone here has used the tools, right? You know, when the tools are there, they're going to be there. We guarantee it. But if that staff person is bogged down behind the computer, they're not with you. They're not providing that customer service. So ToolBank USA is obsessed with trying to help our affiliates build the best customer service they can by providing continued financial support from our friends at Home Depot, donated tools for lending, hosting servers for email, and the tool tracking platform, all that sexy IT stuff that we all care so deeply about. That's what ToolBank USA tackles, right? Countless skilled IT hours in support of our platforms, teleconferencing, business information reporting services, and facility security services. And also some of the air transportation for the new executive directors going to new cities. We flew the EDs from Portland, Phoenix, and Richmond to the Houston ToolBank for their grand opening in October because they needed to see this. And so we had them come into the party so that they would know how to set up their own party. And we're all looking forward to that. We're all going to be here, right? So this is really exciting, and just one more other thing, that at the very end of last year, Santa Claus brought us 800 ladders from Little Giant. So we'll be distributing those later this year as well. So we're thrilled to do that, but the really cool part of what we were doing is when you hear these kinds of accomplishments, you think, well, okay, you got that, but it's in support of the affiliates, so that's your win. And the affiliates are doing good work, and ToolBank USA, that's their win. So where's the line? That's what we're doing now, is determining what is the role of each. What's best served by ToolBank USA? What's best served by the affiliates? Are we working towards the best advantage in both directions? And the things that are the most exciting about this network are what we are achieving when we work together. ToolBank USA and its partners are working hand in hand to establish something as immense as a 3-year plan that we are currently executing. This is year 2. First 5 years of ToolBank USA was all about replication. We just were trying to get the ToolBanks out and going. And ToolBank would be like, hey, we need more help. And ToolBank USA would say, we're kind of busy replicating. We need more ToolBanks so that we understand what normal looks like and what replication looks like. We got good at replication. Now it's time to get good at optimization. And there's no folks better to talk to about that than our first executive directors. So we talked to Patty, we talked to Kat, we talked to Noah, talking to all of our experts in the field that are coming together to help us strengthen this network. So in this strategic plan, which we ratified last year, we brought in all the executive directors to help us ratify that. It really focuses on optimization for the network. And our leaders set down goals and objectives to be tackled in specific timeframes by committees in which both national representatives and local representatives serve on. I won't even bore you with the whole raft of policy that was delivered on Tuesday, but it was deep. And there was a lot of it, and it was requested by our affiliates. So that's pretty cool. A few months back, we issued our most comprehensive case for support ever, ToolBank USA. You can find it on our website. Then we sent the file to our affiliates so they could break it down for their materials as well. We have an IT committee that is neck deep in an assessment about our tool tracking platform. Our tool tracking platform right now has got us a long way, but it's presently operating on a platform that was quite literally built on the kindness of UPS in the beginning, and beyond that, goodwill, pure generosity. So the new platform that's going to get us from 10 toolbanks to 100 is going to have costs, and this committee is going to help us figure out what those costs look like. So we are definitely working towards a sustainable solution there. So as you can see, the ToolBank Network, we're not just a group of people or a collection of organizations, but a team of leaders that are working together. They're leading exemplary organizations in their own communities, and these people somehow find the time to also serve on these national communities. A lot of the local leaders will say, God, we do not have time for an IT committee call, but I'll do it. And we thank you for that. This is where the work gets done. Peter Drucker is often called the father of modern management. He said management is about doing things right, and leadership is doing the right things. In the early years of this national organization, we obsessed over doing things right. We wanted to do things right. And we worked with those local leaders to figure out how to do things right. That really set the tone for us to set up a second wave of toolbanks: Houston, Phoenix, Portland, Richmond, Chicago. And now we're doing the right things. We have a whole team of leaders that are pulling together to make these things happen. We are building a brand. All of us, each of you, ToolBank USA and each of our affiliates are building a brand, ToolBank, that is synonymous with excellence. And whether you are a former staffer, Michelle Hawkins right here, front row, or you're a former ToolBank USA board president, Adria Perez-Douglas, right here in the front. This is where excellence comes from. Folks that keep coming back. So the ToolBankers are a serious family committed to excellence. And speaking of excellence, this is one of my favorite parts of the event. I want to tell you a little bit about our staff. ToolBank USA team, because they are special people, they work tirelessly to make things look really easy, like this event. Danny Ayers joined ToolBank USA in 2013 as our Senior Director of Affiliates. Danny was instrumental in the early stages of Richmond and Houston ToolBanks, now focused on Chicago and Phoenix, and pretty much handles all of them. So many thanks for everything you do, Danny. Danny came to us from Philadelphia, and we are thrilled to have you on the team, to say the least. Quick round of applause. Matt Walenciak also joined the team in 2013 and took on ToolBank Disaster Services with a ferocity that only Matt could bring. I will share with you that during a deployment to Arkansas, Matt called for a staff meeting. We all typically work from home. We have a great office at Kilpatrick, but we do our conference calls, a lot of them. And when it came to Matt's turn on the agenda, he said, "The sky's just turned green. Everybody's taking cover. I'll call you right back." And that's when ToolBank Disaster Services became very real. So Matt, thank you for everything you have done. It's been amazing. Margie Cohen, our Director of Development and Marketing, joined ToolBank USA last year and brings a tremendous breadth of experience to our team. Organizational development, accounting, hiking, and everything in between. Margie, thank you for everything you do. And last but not least, Amanda Plum, Director of Affiliates, also joined Team USA last year and was facilitating the stand-up of Richmond and Portland ToolBanks. Amanda was previously with StoryCorps, so you may know from National Public Radio, and will bring her narration expertise to you tomorrow, to the ToolBankers that are here for the summit, during a couple of sessions. So, where's Amanda? There she is. Thank you, Amanda. So I'm thrilled to have someone here who I have looked up to for quite a while, and I'll bring him to the podium in just a minute or two. So I'm rushing to that, and I'm thrilled to have Bill here with us. But I want to share some news with you, and I always try to bring some good news to this event. And this year we got some incredible news. This is a fun part of the show, and we've got a lot of good news to share, to say the least. But this really makes it, I think, our long-standing partnership with the best tool company in the world just got quite a bit stronger. Back in 2010, Stanley Black & Decker made a 5-year commitment of $1 million to ToolBank USA. Plain and simple, that was the fuel in the tank that makes this possible. I'm thrilled to tell you that Stanley Black & Decker renewed their commitment to $1 million over 3 years to ToolBank USA, and will continue to fuel this network for years to come. So before I bring Bill up, I want to just close with one of my favorite quotes. I use this a lot. Some of you have heard it in the board meetings that I have led in your particular cities. History is made by those who show up. ToolBank success is all about folks like you who take the time. They make a commitment to their jobs. They take a commitment to their committees. They make a commitment to their boards, and they take them very seriously. They show up. My hat is off to you. We all have busy, busy lives, and these are the folks that make it happen, and they find the time, whether it's an hour they would have taken a nap, an hour they would have spent with family. Some of them actually rope in their family to help them with this, and we appreciate that too. So you can see how these leaders become not only leaders in this community, in this network, but in their local community. A lot of folks come to us to serve on local boards that have never served on a board before. And in a few short years, they're now leaders in their community. They're the head of a transformative new resource in their city. So it's thrilling to build leaders, and those leaders show up. So thank you for showing up. You can see how quickly and easily we arrived at a ladder symbol for this year's ToolBank Summit, because we're climbing together to make a movement that is transforming volunteerism forever. So I have the immense pleasure and privilege to introduce someone who does stand on top of the proverbial ladder, in my opinion. And Bill's been the executive director of the Atlanta Community Food Bank since 1979. I think Bill and his team have been collecting Atlanta Community ToolBank mail since 1993. We've got to swap mail after this. The food bank facilitates the distribution of over 50 million pounds of food every year. And the food bank is a charter member of Feeding America, the national network of food banks. And Bill has inspired the creation of countless food banks. For those of you that have the pleasure of listening to him speak on poverty, hunger issues, and public policy, it's a real treat to have you here today. So please welcome Bill Bolling.
Golly, getting an announcement of another $1 million really softens the crowd up, doesn't it? Everybody's feeling good. Fish was good, and thank you, Mark. And you know, you guys have worked with Mark long enough to know how he works. You know, he reached out a few weeks ago and said you were having the meeting, and would I like to come down and share a lunch? And, you know, we've worked together through the years. And I said, sure, free lunch, be with tool bankers. But I wrote that little note, any way I can help. I'm now your keynoter. It's what happens to an entrepreneur when you say, can I help with something? Sure, why don't you give a little talk to the group? So I'm happy to do that. I know we have limited time, and I only have 2 hours of my comments, and go about the workshops in the afternoon. One, let me just congratulate you. As a banker, I hope you guys, when you're giving talks in your local communities, talk about being a banker. You know, it really works. You're not looking for contributions, you're looking for investments, and that gives you the opportunity to talk about that return on investment right away. Because in food banks, tool banks, or all the kind of banks that we have today, we really stand out in any community about how we're able to leverage our resources. As Mark said, I started out in a ministry working with the homeless back in the 70s, and literally no great inspiration about being on the ground floor of food banking. I was desperate. I needed some help. So I went around town to all the congregations and told them I'd give them all the food they needed if they'd open their doors. Being congregations, Christians and Jewish, I made them feel efficient and guilty. I can quote from any scripture, and you know, hell, they had to open their doors. After I had about 30 of them lined up, I realized I didn't have any food or a truck or a warehouse. So you might have started your ToolBank that way. You know, these things just make sense. And if you've got an idea and you're trying to get community support, it helps if it just makes sense. But the idea of sharing tools is not a new idea. Probably you grew up the same way I grew up. We shared tools with family and friends and neighbors. It's kind of how we did it. But as there's more and more people, that doesn't always work. And a lot of folks don't have tools at all. And I like that you've got a new system to track them, because when my neighbors borrowed my tools, a lot of times they didn't bring them back. So you know how that goes. I want to just share a little bit about, you know, kind of the dynamics of how we began and the value proposition of having an association, a little bit about the tension that, you know, you're not so likely to talk about when you just announce you've got a new $1 million grant, you're starting these things all over the place. You know, it's harder to talk kind of about the shadow side of how do we work together, but there is tension in it. I know when we started the food bank, it wasn't long before there was a furniture bank and then a school supply bank and a clothing bank, and we have a great program here in Atlanta, actually, with a former Atlanta food bank person who started MedShare, which was school supplies bank. So, you know, the banking idea really works in America because we have plenty of everything. And that's a really important concept, that we're not working from not having enough, we're working out of our prosperity. Part of the prosperity is Home Depot has a store full of tools, and we just need some of them. So you look for strategic partners, people that have a need or people that have a way to help you. I can tell you in starting food banking, when I started the food bank here in Atlanta in 1978, and we got legal in 79, you guys probably went through that. You did it a while, and then somebody said, can we give you money? And you actually have to get yourself legal. But I know we'd been in operation about 6 months, and I get this little magazine, this Hunger magazine, that said everything you want to know about food banking. Oh, shit, I thought that up. I had to kind of get over that. Damn, man, I was feeling really good till I read there's a whole article about it. Well, I called up to Detroit, and they had started 3 months before me, so they must know a whole lot more than I do. And I even flew up to Detroit. Trees were blooming down here. It snowed when I got there, and I thought, I'm coming back to Atlanta. I'm not going to work up here. We came together in, of all places, Phoenix, Arizona in 1979, and there were maybe 10 of us. Kind of like you, there's about 10 of us. And we said, maybe by working together, we could get more done than working separately. Maybe by sharing what we know. And what we were really interested in is not so much collaborating and sharing, it's like who had access to food. This is before UPC codes. There's just a few people in the room that remember that, but they weren't always there to scan. So back in the old days of getting food, there was a lot of it because food industry couldn't really track their food. I mean, they just would find it out of date. But we started Feeding America, or actually we started back then Second Harvest. That was the name of it. It's a great program. You know, within the first couple of years, maybe we had 30 food banks. But it was an idea whose time had come. The same way the ToolBank is an idea whose time has come. So it's practical, it's timely, there are models for doing it, you can point to success, and all those are important if you're going to start a program or even take it to the next level. But having been a part of starting Second Harvest, which eventually became America's Second Harvest, which eventually became Feeding America. I say that because you've got to keep embracing change, and your brand and how you describe yourself and what your mission is really important, but it evolves. But the clear idea that there's a central place to share the energy, to share the best practices, to access goods and services and money, to promote the brand, makes a lot of sense on the face of it. Doesn't make as much sense when you're trying to run your program in Mark or Denny or somebody's calling you up with, I didn't get that report, or can you do this for me? So one of the advantages you have, I would say, which we didn't have when we started food banking, is that the people who started ToolBank USA started a ToolBank. That's very important, because eventually this thing will grow to the size where you have 100 ToolBanks. Or like in food banking, we have 203 food banks. You know, we work all over the country, and we have over 60, 70,000 affiliates that we're serving. But eventually there will come a time where I've really got my act together, it's working well, and I don't see why I need to work with a national organization. In fact, you might say one day, they really don't get me. And a lot of times they don't. When Mark and I sat over at Grant Park and had breakfast one day, and he said, I think I'm ready to go national, I did my very best to talk him out of it. Didn't I? I said, running an association is not like running a program. It's really different, fundamentally different work. In some ways it's more gratifying because you're able to leverage. In other ways it is really hard because you're not on the ground. You're trying to support those on the ground. We even have a saying in food banking, we centralize the acquisition and we decentralize the distribution. So when you think about that for tools, the centralization is we're going to work with the Home Depots. We're going to work with the UPSs. We're going to work with the tool makers. That's the centralization. And we're going to deal with whatever their needs are. In food, it's around liability and logistics, not going to get back in the marketplace, guarantee it's going to feed the hungry. You have your own set of metrics. But in any case, they're the same set of metrics that you need to kind of adhere to in your local community. So the tension is always there. It's better to just talk about it and have it up front. And when you get together to get in small groups and talk about it. Because we didn't talk about it for a long time until we would get in real trouble and almost have a crisis and come together and say, well, what's the value proposition? Why do we need Second Harvest anyway? I'm doing fine here in Atlanta. You're in the stage of growth, and it's all fun right now. But as you grow, you know, some of you are going to become more mature, and you're going to be asked to help those who want to start. And you have to think, what's the payoff for me to do that? So when you think about the value proposition, you think about what can the national organization do to help us. And the national organization's always got to ask, what can the local tool bank do to expand the concept? That's where we want to go. We want everybody in America, all volunteer groups, all disasters. I don't have to tell you this. This is what we all want. We want everybody to be well fed, to have the tools they need to do the job, to have the medical supplies or the diapers or whatever it is, because there's plenty of everything. So one thing that ToolBank USA does is it promotes the brand. More than you could in your local Home Depot, they can go to the headquarters, which just happens to be in Atlanta, but it wouldn't have to be in Atlanta. But that policy is usually made at a national level, not the local store. Store will give you a little stuff out the side, but they're not going to make a big policy. So you think, how do we promote the brand so that companies that are working in every community we want to operate could support you on the local level? Setting standards for accountability. Unlike food, your stuff doesn't spoil, but it does disappear, right? So you got to create a way that you don't lose those tools, because when you go to the people that gave you the tools, they're saying, well, we gave you tools, where are they? We're not going to give you more. In our case, it's around the liability of the food. But in any case, setting standards and having mutual accountability helps us nationally to go to major donors and say, we have standards for every program about who we serve, how we account for it, how we tell our story, how we might frame your work and your donations into the local community. And at the national level, you've got to have all those conversations as you do in the local level. Sharing best practices. You know, most ideas come from the bottom up and not the top down. Now, Mark already knows this because we talked about it right up front. You're not gonna push this thing down. It's going to bubble up where people, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Can we do that in our community? But then as you want to evolve and get better with whatever it is you want to get better with, the ideas are usually coming up. And when they come up, the question is, what's the container that's going to hold those ideas? How are you going to facilitate the sharing of best practices? What are you going to do when people at the local community trademark their idea and then want to sell it? We've had food banks do that. We've even had food banks trademark a name that we were all using, and they went to the lawyer first and said, you're going to have to pay us. That can happen in a network. So getting that on the table and talking about how you're going to share that and how sharing it actually helps everybody. If that's not an underlying belief that you have, you can go off the track. Leadership development. As your programs grow, the sophistication of the leader and the team has to grow. We were just talking about the food bank up in Virginia, which is a smaller food bank run by a great friend, and they have a great program up there, but they're not anything like Atlanta. They're in a smaller community. So as programs grow, the sophistication of handling HR or hiring or liability or logistics, all that's got to grow. So how a national organization brings you together, how it facilitates and decides what workshops you're going to have, how you build a culture of sharing and trust really makes a difference in the long run. Makes a huge difference. Strategic thinking for the movement, not just for your program. That can only be done when you bring the community together and you think as a group. Now, the banking idea is not a new idea. Even tool banking is not a new idea. But it's a new idea in communities that hadn't developed them yet. So you can take all the best practices you've learned from the 8 food banks that you have, and the 9th one's going to have all that wisdom, and they're going to take off faster. But figuring out the container, building the trust, having the right kind of facilitation, documenting what you're learning is the real key to getting that done. Developing strategic partnerships. This is a really interesting one because most partnerships are local. They're not national. But you can develop a local partnership that then can be shared with everyone. Let me just give an in the room for you. I think there's somebody here from UPS also. I mean, they help food banking so much because they're the picked up 3 days a week with perishable food. Who did I call? I called UPS and Coca-Cola and Cisco Foods. I use UPS software at the food bank. And that was a year-long process of UPS teaching us how to do that. So we like to say we don't take left turns either. And we can say that because it's a generous company, but you can't just go ask them for anything. You have to ask them for the right thing. So those kind of strategic partners are very important. UPS, maybe 83 or I don't know, we started a program in Atlanta called Atlanta's Table to work with prepared food because that's a whole different logistics to get food from restaurants and caterers and hotels than it is from the farmers or manufacturers. So you have to deal with USDA and health departments, and you have to build a different, acquisition distribution system. But we created best-in-class program. In fact, we were the only program except New York City, and it was Manhattan, and I couldn't duplicate that. So we were creating. And we created Atlanta's Table, Dallas's Table, Seattle's Table, and we did that with UPS coming in year 2 and saying, we want to help you take this national. Gave us the money, but much more important, gave us the consultants to do the logistics on it. We built over 125 programs based on the one we did here in Atlanta. And the national program was based at the Atlanta Community ToolBank. And what happened after about 7 or 8 years? The food industry said, you know, we really don't want 2 networks. What? You know, they're very different programs. Sorry. You know, Pillsbury came in, a lot of food companies that also had restaurant groups, and said, this doesn't work for us. So we had to merge the programs. And that was hard. I mean, it probably took 5 years of people not wanting to give up their local brand. But it made sense. And it made sense because a national company that's done this, international company, helped us understand why that made sense. Measuring collective impact. And Mark, you've already used some of those numbers, but you have to get more sophisticated as you go along. It can't just be the number of tools and the number of hours. I mean, ultimately, the story is how tools transform lives. I wrote an article about 2 years ago that got published nationally, op-ed in a lot of papers, and the title was, Do Facts Count Anymore? And my God, do we keep trying? I mean, it's important. At the food bank, we measure everything. In fact, we have a saying, things get counted, get done. So we have metrics on everything. Some folks, you know, the philanthropists, foundations, they want all those facts. But I can tell you out in the community what people want is stories. And stories is going to change hearts and minds and donors more than facts are. So it's not one or the other, you got to do both. But the collective impact story can't just be the numbers. Because a lot of folks can make up the numbers and say it's their numbers. And in fact, as you know, people just got their own numbers. They go to that same media outlet, which reinforces their point of view, and that's the only point of view they have. And they would argue till the cows come home, their numbers is better than your numbers. So somehow you've got to cut through that. But you do that primarily by working together and coming up with those branding statements. The value of building and strengthening community. And maybe out of all the things that I've talked about so far, that really is the most important thing you can do collectively. Is that while this idea may be exciting in the beginning, after you work for a while, it's just getting up and showing up, as Mark said. It's just getting it out the door, accounting for it, telling the story, like any business. And I would suggest that you can't stay in this work unless you do it in the context of community. That we need each other. We need each other's ideas. We need each other's criticisms. We need each other coming together and saying collectively we can get more done. Not more tools out the door, but more lives transformed. At the food bank, we really key off of our mission. And everything is around that. I noticed when I went to ToolBank USA, it's not that clear. I mean, I had to hunt a little bit before I found. But one of the things that you find out when you're running a national ToolBank USA is that it's there to support you. It's not about us. And when you're running a tool bank, you're there to support local initiatives, to change lives, to change projects, to respond to disasters. So it's not about you, it's about them. And then the folks who are involved in that community who actually get to use the tools and do what they feel called to do on any given day, it's not about them, it's about the thing that happens in the community by working together and having the right tool for the right job. I'll just say that every idea is not a good idea. I was asking Mark before I began, how'd you guys get into disaster work? He said, well, we're so well received in disaster work. People love it. Well, people love for food banks to come in and feed everybody too. But we were in it for 20 years and got out of it 2 years ago. Now, I think it makes a lot more sense with tools than it does food, bringing it in from all over the country. But for us, that was a thing we grappled with and decided we would support the local, but it wouldn't be a Feeding America initiative. You guys have already figured out, using, I think, Salesforce as your platform, what we have tried for 36 years to create technology that would track and report food for all the food banks, and we have spent tens of millions of dollars, and we're not there yet. It is really hard to have central technology. But and for a tool bank, because you're actually tracking that and getting it back, it's not going out and used. That makes a lot of sense. But it's one that you have to look at other networks. Were they able to use that? If they were, good. What can we learn from it? If they weren't, then what do we need to learn from it? The example I gave with the prepared food program. Great success. It had to go away. It had to merge in with Feeding America. We have tried to develop trucking lines, even developing our own trucking company. In Georgia last year, I collected 7 million pounds of fresh food from Georgia farmers. We like to say our food's fresher than Whole Foods. I mean, it got picked on Friday and we're distributing it on Monday. But what prevents me from not doing 14 million pounds is trucking. And we're trying to work as a state association. Can we have a trucking company? Texas tried it, couldn't do it. Arizona tried it, they could do it. So that's the value of coming together and say, why did it work there, didn't work there, why would it work in Georgia? So that value of collaboration, the value of coming together and sharing best practices, the value of understanding what your national organization can do for you to empower you. And that is in your mission, to empower you. That collective work is worth coming together for. Now, let me stop. I know I've already taken more of my time than you gave me, Mark, but let me just see, because I got another 30-minute talk. I couldn't give you more examples, but let me just stop for a second as one who's helped start food banks, furniture banks, medical supply banks. We have now in Atlanta, you're probably working with a market, because we're a big film industry, we're 5th in the country now at films. There's so much lumber and supplies. There's a 30,000 square foot warehouse in town. And they just created that in the last year. Don't know what to do with all the lumber. Well, you think, well, maybe the folks with the tools and the lumber and the community. So those are the kind of collaborations you're always looking for. So let me see if anybody has any questions or comments, or I can just tell you that all of us who have been working in food banking, our greatest, I think, satisfaction is to help others in the banks that they're going to do, to share our successes and our failures, and to share the things that we've grappled with, to share the tension. We're meeting in April out in near Phoenix, and the central part of the conference out there, 36 years into it, is the tension between local food banks and Feeding America. So it's always there. Has anybody got any questions, comments? Well, I'm not going to sit down until somebody asks one, so go ahead. What was most helpful about what I just shared? Did it feel like it was reinforcing to you?
So I also, Ian Haft from Phoenix Community ToolBank, and work for Wells Fargo supporting volunteerism. At a high level, I'm the data guy.
Yep.
And so the discussion about the numbers versus the stories just absolutely rings true. For the first couple of years that I've been in the role since 2010, first couple of years I would give those numbers to a regional president, and they'd go out in front of a big audience at a fundraising lunch or something, and they'd talk about our 100,000 hours of volunteerism in the state of Arizona, this many team members that went out and did it, and that's great. But really, the people that cared about that were sitting around at the boardroom in Wells Fargo when we announced the numbers at the end of the year, and then just I now watch the audience at every event I'm at, and if the storyteller up there just says, "Here's what one team member did," then it's just a totally transformed. Like the audience receives it, they applaud at the end, because you made them feel.
Yeah. Because then there's the possibility of empathy. I can feel what you feel, or sympathy. But I think that you can tell the story, which connects. And when you're talking, you can see if you're connecting. And then say, and we multiplied that 100,000 times. Think about that. Or what we often do when we're talking about, we're going to do about 60 million pounds of food, is, you know, what does that look like? I mean, is that tractor trailers from here to Jacksonville, Florida? Is it one of those big mega ships that comes from China? I mean, how much food is that? And translate it into something, into a story, then into something that you can connect to. You know, oh, I get an image of that. You know, and then you can talk about the leverage. You know, how much your dollar, how much your volunteer time, how much your tool did out in the community. So, yeah. All right, got my one question. Affirmation. Thank you very much.
One quick round of applause again for Bill for just enlightening us. Thank you so much. Bill, we brought you a present for offering. You're on ToolBank USA, Bolling. Enjoy.
Probably showed up here on a cold day with no coat on. He said, my God, we'll have to give him. I'll wear it with pride. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got two other awards we'd like to give, and this is really exciting because this is kind of the connection that we have with some champions in our network. And I'll run a little bit over on time, but this is worth it, and this is where the stories come from. We have two awards that we're starting this year, one of which is for someone who couldn't join us today. We have the ToolBanker of the Year Award, and the 2015 ToolBanker of the Year Award is for Nick Costides. Nick is a UPSer that joined the ToolBank board 7 years ago now. Helped us build the tool platform that we currently use. Rose in the ranks of our board to serve in every leadership position, every single office, served as board president for 2 years, and served his last year as immediate past president on our board. And 2015 is his first year as former director, and before he left our board, he said, I really want to be the chair of your advisory council. And I said, I love you. He's an incredible guy. He couldn't be with us today. He is in India. I let him know that he is winning this award, and he just wanted me to share that he's accepting this award on behalf of all of you, because this is something that we are really doing together, and that he is inspired by you just as much as we are inspired by him. So to Nick Costides, thank you. One more award that is new is we have the ToolBanker of the Year Award, but we also have a ToolBank of the Year Award that we give. We think this will be a coveted new award. It is something that's new, and it's an arbitrary award. We don't take votes. We just folks stand out. And this ToolBank stands out because they have a new executive director that joined our family in early 2013. Was days old when we started our strategic plan, had tons of input on that strategic plan. Between 2013 and 2014, this ToolBank tripled their impact in the community and started off on pretty energetic projects like the rain gardens that we mentioned earlier. Please welcome Noah Smock up for the Baltimore Community ToolBank 2015 ToolBank of the Year. Come on up, Noah. So this award is, well, it's something special. And I don't think TSA is going to approve of this award. So we will ship it to you. But we'd like this to live in your ToolBank for 1 year, at which time we'll bring it back for next year's summit. And we're thrilled to let you have this.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
That's incredible.
One more round of applause.
Well, I didn't expect to be going home with hardware, but I will definitely take it.
That's a tool.
Have it shipped. briefly, obviously, accepting this on behalf of the entire board, and really, I think the city of Baltimore. If you think about Baltimore for 5 seconds, a couple words might come to mind: City of the Wire, these things. Baltimore was ready. Talk about an idea that has its time had come. Baltimore was so ready for a ToolBank. I was a volunteer coordinator when I heard about it. First question: when are you going to open? Because we needed it that bad. On the story side, 2-second story, 30-second story, there was a program that had just heard about the ToolBank, and this was a woman that works in an organization called the South Baltimore Partnership. She employs youth over the summer, and she had lost some funding. We are familiar with these woes. And she was going from 5 youth to 4. When she heard about the ToolBank, and what they do is they clean up alleys and they use a lot of tools, she was able to keep that 5th student engaged over the summer. And if you think about the City of the Wire, what kind of activities a youth might get engaged in if they weren't otherwise productively engaged. So that's, on the story side, that's some of our impact. I'd also like to shout out to our incredible staff, and we all know that we're a small shop, but it's our board members and our fellows and interns. So I want to give a shout out to Marcus, to Abby, to Ashley, and to Susan, who joined me today. And we represent, of course, a lot more people who could not join us.
You got it. I wouldn't want to part with that either. So again, just to wrap it up, I want to thank all of you. We have some exciting events coming up in the ToolBank Network. We have the Portland ToolBank. Zoya Kumar is here. Chris Ryan Kumar, board president. We're thrilled that you're here. We're West Coast ToolBank. Trey Bearden, Richmond ToolBank. Jana.
Can you all stand, please?
I'll tell you what. Why don't we have all of our executive directors stand, if you would, just the time that you have been committed to this movement. Our ToolBank executive directors, thanks to each one of you with your Phillips. Thank you. So we've got 3 grand openings taking place this spring in Richmond, Virginia, Portland, Oregon, and Phoenix. I hope each of you can find the time to visit one of those, because it is a remarkable experience. A lot of work, a lot of passion has gone into building these tool banks, and it's something that is not to be missed. We're thrilled that you're here with us today. Please stay and network and just hang out with your friends here. We've got some incredible people in this room, as I'm sure you have learned, and it's